how is it that of the Muslim faith, and I heard you reference, and when you spoke of Jesus and said peace be upon him, that he can be simply, and I use that word very loosely, a prophet, when a prophet is supposed to be someone who speaks on behalf of God, but Jesus acknowledges and speaks that he is the I am.
Okay. So I think that a study of early Christianity will show that Christianity was anything but monolithic in the first few centuries, right? There were many different movements that arose, and you know, Jesus, peace be upon him, was viewed in many different ways. So for example, you have the early Jewish Christians, if you study about the early Jewish Christians that believe that they still had to abide by, and I have a pastor here, so I'm gonna let you correct me if you see if you feel like I'm saying anything that's wrong or incorrect. But there were Jewish Christians that saw Jesus, peace be upon him, as part of that line of Jewish prophets, or calling to the law of Moses, confirming the law of Moses. So the law of Moses, peace be upon him, was still relevant, and so on and so forth. There were questions. If you study the adoptionist movement, the Gnostic Bibles, there were people early on in Christianity, in fact, even in Jerusalem, that debated Christ's divinity, peace be upon him, and whether he was God, whether he was the Son of God, whether the Son of Man. These debates did take place, where the Gospels were actually not standardized until, what, 6th century, right? About the 6th century, the Gospels started.
4th century.
Around the 4th century. So the debate about the nature of Jesus, peace be upon him, is a very early debate. As Muslims, we view him, and this is with full love and respect to our Christian brothers and sisters, to keep that in mind. It's a healthy debate, right? We are, after all, the only other religion in the world that holds Christ, peace be upon him, in any esteem. As Muslims, we view him as a messenger of God, as a prophet of God, as one of the greatest messengers and prophets, who came to confirm the law of Moses, and abrogated only some of those laws, and who's in a line of messengers and prophets. So even the Messiah, we do believe he's the Messiah. So Muhammad, peace be upon him, didn't teach that he would come back to the world to reform it. He actually taught that Jesus, peace be upon him, would return and would establish justice in the world once again. So we believe in a second coming of Christ. But certainly, again, the Gospels were standardized after Christ, and we do hold him in high esteem, but we do see him as a continuation of that line of prophets and messengers, and not as a son of God, not in the begotten sense. So the way that we see it is, and it was called the adoptionist movement, right? The Nestorian Church and so on and so forth. We believe that when God, even in biblical rhetoric, so when it says the Son of God, God references the children of Israel, for example, in the Bible collectively as the Son of God. Other prophets are referenced as sons of God. So we don't believe it to be anything more than metaphorical in that sense, as opposed to something which is literal. So we do hold those differences, but we are the only other faith in the world that holds Jesus, peace be upon him, in any esteem.
Yeah, and that is a place of, it is a place where we hold different beliefs as Muslims and Christians, and there was a lot of diversity of opinion of who Jesus was for several hundred years, but eventually kind of the majority pulled out the kind of the official statement that does believe in the divinity of Christ that came out in the 4th century. But it is fair to acknowledge that there was a diversity of opinion on that across the early church. But we understand that, Jesus as a figure in our religious lives differently.
Absolutely.
And
what I would say is that, certainly there is a difference of opinion as to who he was. But once again, the two largest religions in the world hold Jesus, peace be upon him, in a very high esteem. And that's something to acknowledge as well, that the similarities are more than the differences. However, to us, our view of God is more in accordance with the Judaic tradition, right? Of who God was, and so on and so forth. So the concept of salvation and so on and so forth, all of that is more in accordance with the Jewish tradition and things of that sort. So we believe that Jesus, peace be upon him, was in the line of those messengers and prophets. And we see ourselves as an extension of some of those early Christian groups, if you will, that had those differences as to who Jesus, peace be upon him, was, and things of that sort. Is that fair, Pastor?
Yeah.
You good with that?
I'm good with that.
All right.
Thank
I don't
you.
have to do anything to your cookies, right?
No, we're good.
And I'm gonna get out of the way here soon, but
No, not take this.
just for further clarification for myself, in his own admission, Jesus said that he was. I am. It's not really about the perception or other
Well,
thoughts.
is there any written document from Jesus, peace be upon him, or anything that was written directly from him saying that? Or are they all accounts after his departure?
Speaking that I am, I would be more than happy to look that up for you. You know,
But there's no, so the Gospels were written after
right.
Jesus' time, right? And so, again, the
Right.
Muslims would say that he never claimed that. That's something that's debatable, right?
Okay,
There's
well,
nothing
that's understood. That's
Right.
basically, I guess, my question is that there. Yeah, okay.